welcome back to Build Propulsion Lab at JCON Europe, coming to you live from Cologne, Germany. My next guest is Dan. Welcome.
Hello.
Dan is maintainer, I would say.
Committer.
Maintainer,
Apache
and what's
member.
not, and Apache Foundation member of Apache Causeway.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit what this project is about, why it is important, why we all need to use it tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a framework. It's been around a while actually. We changed the name. It used to have a different name. It was called Apache ISIS, and
That's a very unfortunate name.
And it's tricky. Yeah. The reason for that was the original guys who developed it. Myself, we live near Oxford, and the River Thames, as it goes through Oxford, is called the Isis, right? You know, if you ever watch the boat race on TV, and you look at the boats there, the second teams is Goldie versus Isis. Anyway, that was the name. Lovely name, but it has different connotations.
Oh yeah.
So we went looking for another name, and we came with Causeway. There's a metaphor there with the Giant's Causeway. You may know that's like an archaeological feature in Northern Ireland. You have these hexagonal bosses. It's like a volcanic thing, and Causeway means a bridge as well. So it's a bridge between the business and the tech, really. This is a framework for DDD, for domain-driven applications.
That's what I was about to guess, that the bridge between business and the tech will be domain-driven design.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's all about that. Now, if I go back before the Apache days, the original name of the framework was Naked Objects Framework, which, those of you who've got a long memory might have come across the name. The idea there is effectively, okay, here's a technical description of it. You all know what Hibernate is, right? So Hibernate takes your domain object model and it basically builds a meta model, and then that is used to persist that stuff into a relational database, or maybe, Mongo or something else, but effectively persistence. So do the same thing, but go in the other direction, right? So effectively, this is where naked objects comes as an idea. So you've got your domain object model, you build a meta model. It's kind of a bit richer than one that Hibernate would build. And it's not only the state, but it's also the behavior. And so basically, when you're building a Causeway application, what you're building is the domain objects. Okay, there's an ORM to do the backend stuff, but in terms of all that tedious UI stuff, it's hard work, right? It takes a lot of effort. But it's all about trying to reduce the feedback loop. We're building systems for the people, and we want to build the right system and not get bogged down in all the technical stuff. And so, I'm here today and I'm talking about basically an application I've worked on for the last 10, 12 years, where we've been moving it up from the older version of the framework to Causeway. I forgot to say that Causeway runs on Spring Boot as well. So this is also basically managing the technical debt and reducing it. We can't be too egotistical about this because there are so many good web frameworks, let's face it, it's a competitive landscape. So for us, a win is like, oh, well, it's Spring Boot and we can use it for prototyping and that's great, and then we can build something conventional. I'd be happy with that. If you say, fine, and I could use this for production, even better. But it's about effectively providing a tooling that allows people to build the system they need to build and, create that feedback loop and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, I've been.
No, this is, that sounds very, very interesting and relevant, but it's not low code or anything like that.
No, I mean, you could call it low code. Some people do.
Okay.
I mean, insofar as you don't have to write much code.
Yeah.
But the code you're writing is Java.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not like some kind of a drag and drop Lego that supposedly does some magic and you get completely finished operational system out of domain description because it doesn't work.
No. I'm skeptical.
No, it doesn't.
I go back to the days of, do you remember MDA, model-driven architecture?
Exactly.
I wrote an article once, I wrote a scathing article, I think 20 years ago. It's not like trying to create a higher abstraction, because let's face it, Java's a great language. And, you can be expressive, but it's trying to get rid of all the cruft that we don't need and just focus on expressing the intent. So here's the data, here's this relations, and here's the operations that you can do. So I wouldn't call it low code, but you don't have to write much code.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In the end of the day, we're all for reducing the amount of code, especially boilerplate that can be generated. And then there are tools like Spring Data talking about Spring Boot, which kind of does a little bit the same, right? You describe your model in objects, and it will generate a lot of this.
Yeah, of course, Spring Data's concern is, for kind of repositories and those types of things, and have conventions, and it does some reflection. And so we do the same thing. Basically, what the framework is doing when it builds up its meta model is inspecting the structure of your code, and from that it infers effectively a behavior in the user interface. The user interface can be a web user interface, also a REST API, also a GraphQL API, because once you've got a meta model, these are all different projections of the thing, But yes, but Spring Data is sort of doing the same thing. If you don't like annotations, if you don't like reflection, then please go somewhere else. We're not going to be the place for you, right? But I think in the Spring community,
for sure. We
don't mind it, right? That's fine.
I mean, if you use Spring Boot, you're very used to this kind of thing. All of those are actuators that you just
happy for a bit of magic, and you say fine. It's a trade-off, right? There's magic going on. I don't really know how it works, but as a Spring Boot user.
But this isn't true for Java in general. I mean, what you write is very far away from the machine instructions.
Like how does the GC work? I mean, I don't know, but I'm glad it's done. Clever people that may have built it.
It's JIT, and especially now with Graal VM, with native images, there is so much magic going on, and you're fine with that. Why suddenly you wouldn't be fine with this, like with annotation processing or what's not? For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you've got to be respectful. You've got to I think trying to find ways by which people can adopt a framework, as I say, for prototyping, or if not for production. Also, the concept of a user interface is quite a maybe an arrogant thing. Say, we're going to build your user interface for you, right? It's like, well,
nah.
So this is why the REST API and the GraphQL API are trying to provide different sort of on ramps. You can say, well, actually, no, I'll build that, but I can basically. The hard bit is the domain model, right? Effectively trying to say what is the structure, what is stuff that's relevant, and so, that's kind of been the sort of philosophy, is just to sort of, let you leverage that, that hard thinking that you do about what is the problem we're trying to solve, and then you get a UI, or maybe you get an API. And it's all good stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I would say the one more question that I have is, okay, where do we take it? I assume that your answer will be like anywhere, but between prototyping, internal applications, and like high-scale production stuff, where does it fit?
Yeah, that's a good question, I think. Yeah, I think the sweet spot, the capabilities of the system have been developed mostly for internal systems, right? So I can't point to some million user system that's out there that's built with this framework. On the other hand, it is Spring Boot, so and that was kind of important for us to say, well, that is a platform that people trust in lots of different contexts. And then what's our value add? What's the bit that we add on top to it? And just do that. And then you can sort of take your own thing. So I think, perhaps it's to do with the scale of the domain model and so forth. Big heavyweight domain models running, ERP systems are going to be internal facing. Start there and then, see.
Yeah, it also makes sense, especially if there is a very easy way to generate user interface for your non-demanding users, if I would say.
Sure.
Right, so when I use internal application, I am obviously much less picky about how it looks, how it feels, as long as it does what I need, as opposite to something that you want to sell to the general public, which should be very, very polished.
Well, here's a little, and I'll just to answer this one as well. We make a distinction between problem solvers and process followers. Have you come across this distinction?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, that's exactly that.
So for those of you not come across this, so if I flew here from the UK, and so when I went to the airport, I basically had to get my boarding pass, right? So I just put in my passport, and I kind of press some buttons, and then click, and out comes this boarding pass, So it's like, I don't know what the plane is or what runways it's going to be. I'm just following the process because I'm like a non-expert user. And so that's the thing, right? So and obviously that kiosk application is highly optimized for some dumb person like me to press the button to get the boarding pass. On the other side, an internal system, effectively, those guys know the domain, right? They don't really, it's actually patronizing if me as a techie tell them how to do the system. You want to kind of give them the tools to do the product, to do the thing they need to do, but, get out of the way and just make sure that it does that. So that's kind of that would be another way of thinking about it. If you're building problem solver things, then that's our sweet spot, I would say.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. Yep. So today we learned, and Apache Causeway, take a look. If you are looking for something that will reduce the amount of boilerplate to produce applications based on Spring Boot, very stable, very production battle proven, and what's not, then thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. So go to, I guess, just Apache Causeway. You just Google it, and you get right there.
And beautiful Antora website.
There you go. To learn more. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. You all stay tuned for more interviews and Build Propulsion Lab. My next guest is somewhere right around here, so we'll be back in less than 5 minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye.